colleague from Connecticut, Mr. Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses. Again, your testimony was really interesting, good reading, and obviously this is an important topic. The topic of the hearing, which is no more surprises, when you talk about higher education, there's lots of surprises, and in fact, one of them happened while we were on recess, where on August 1st, the Department of Education announced that student loans that are in forbearance are now going to have interest accrual reinstated, which again, there was no heads up, no warning from Secretary McMahon. There was an article which AP and at News Nation actually reported that student loan payment pauses have doubled since last year. Again, we're talking about a universe of student loan borrowers in this country of 43 million Americans. That number in terms of people who are now in deferment jumped from about 2.5 million last year to over 10 million as we sit here in this hearing room. So that's a big surprise, and it's having a ripple effect on our economy. I mean, there's just no question that adding debt and having the interest recapitalizing and accruing, which, say what you will about the last administration, they actually at least stopped that sort of cancer that happens to people's student loan balances because of the way the system, again, had just sort of been neglected for so long in terms of policymakers that really need to get into this problem. And clearly having accurate pricing and real pricing for families is a very laudable goal. And I think there's way too many students who are starting off in college with really not good awareness in terms of employability, et cetera. But again, they're also starting off this year with interest rates on their Stafford loans of 6.5%. Parent Plus are back up in the 9% range. Again, we went through a low interest rate environment for a while. That's now a thing of the past. And honestly, this subcommittee should be looking at this problem, which the Department of Education just worsened with their latest announcement in terms of the impact on. Maybe there's people who want to defend that policy, but there's no question that the out-of-pocket costs that people are going to experience, because now interest is going to accrue again on the tens of millions of student loans that are out there that are, again, now just cascading back into deferral because of the I think, botched job of the One Big Beautiful Bill. I mean, it's nice to say we're going to cap the amount of loans people can borrow, but if you're a medical student, I mean, having a cap on Stafford loans in terms of trying to get a specialty degree is no solution. It's just going to shove you into the private market, where if you don't have any collateral to put down on a loan application, you're going to be in stratospheric interest levels. So in any case, another issue that's happening over at the Department of Education is that the National Center for Education Sciences, which again is the arm of the Department of Education that actually has the eyes on higher education, the staff has been gutted. Ms. Leighton, maybe you can just sort of talk about the fact that, if we're really serious about trying to get to the bottom of transparency, we need to have headlights out there to see where we're going.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we absolutely do. And, I think I don't know if it's an ideal world or not, but we don't live in a world in which you can do these things without people. And you need people who have real deep expertise, not just contractors or people who you can sub in and people who are doing 5 jobs. They'll say, I used to work at the Department of Education, and the career staff there work incredibly hard. They have incredibly deep expertise and knowledge, and they were understaffed before the rifts started happening. And they were understaffed and doing, I think, too much before all of the new requirements for HR 1. And if we are talking about trying to understand the impacts of some of the changes of that you're talking about in terms of the bill, like, are students going to be pushed into the private market? We need to know that. We need to have the data to be able to understand that. Maybe they won't. Maybe it will lower the cost of college. Maybe it will be beautiful, but maybe it won't. And we need to find out. And in order to do that, you need data. And you don't just need random people who are doing the data. You need the deep, deep expertise that we have have had in the National Center for Education Statistics, the Chief Data Officer, and all of those. I mean, all of those offices are just shells at this point.
Great, thank you, I yield back.